quite a lot about film this week.
We've had an amazing article which has given top play to like different Halloween films.
Yeah.
It is the season of Halloween.
'Tis the season to be spooky.
It just gives a good list of maybe like more quirkier films, I think, that many people might not have heard of.
Some more film content, but more locally, the Sidr Environmental Film Festival.
The meaning behind this film festival, I think, is a really nice way to try and draw attention to the environment.
The films being featured all pay tribute to all forms of life that connects communities, with the aim for audience to appreciate the infinite world of creatures that we live in, which is really nice.
Liam Payne, who's
Yes.
one of the members of One Direction, which is probably in a generation the biggest boy group. They rose up at the same time as social media, so they became kind of like at the forefront of a lot of how fame was being consumed at the time.
They kind of have put in a lot more boundaries in terms of like what they're sharing on social media, but Liam still seemed to have a pretty open dialogue with his fans on Snapchat and Instagram.
Hello everyone, today we're going to be talking about Halloween films to binge on.
The Sidr Environmental Film Festival that is taking place this week.
And we'll be speaking a bit about Liam Payne and the public mourning that has been going online. This is Culture Bites coming to you from the National News. I'm Enas and Farah.
And I'm Farah Andrews. Hi.
Hello. I feel like I hesitated
concerned.
there.
Are you okay?
I feel like I hesitated there. I'm well. Yes, I'm really much better than I was last week.
You weren't very well last week.
I wasn't very well last week, and then I thought I'd kind of got away with it. You know when you think you've got away with something? And I was like, oh, I got away with that. Listened back to last week's episode. I did not get away with that. I'm really sorry. I should have apologized.
She was a trooper. She was here. Obviously, the general messaging is don't go near people if you're sick. But you were on the other side of the hill.
I was on the other side of the hill. I genuinely, this is the thing when I'm sick, I'm one of those in denial people. I was in denial, and then I was sick. And then as I'm coming out of sickness, I'm like, no, I'm fine again.
It's like in Friends and Monica's like, I'm fine.
Oh, fine.
I'm in the prime alive.
Literally.
You weren't in the prime alive last week.
Prime last week. I was definitely, suffering. But we're fine now.
We move on, onwards and upwards. And here we are, ready to speak quite a lot about film this week.
Yes.
Which is, would you describe it as a specialist subject?
I think it is a specialist subject for the National this week. We've had an amazing article which has given top play to like different Halloween films.
Yeah.
It is the season of Halloween.
'Tis the season to be spooky.
And our article's done really well online. So if you haven't seen it, do check it out on the National website. But it just gives a good list of maybe like more quirkier films, I think, that many people might not have heard of.
Yeah.
And just, something a bit different for Halloween.
Do you like scary films?
No.
Neither do I. I do
We're
not.
perfect to talk about this today.
And which is why this is my special subject. So at the weekend, just gone,
Yeah.
I said I want to watch spooky films, not scary films. And Eddie was like, define what you mean. And what I basically meant was I wanted Halloween to be like a very key focal point, main theme. But I didn't want to be scared.
You're giving me that kind of same Christmas energy. You want like a Lindsay Lohan-esque film for Halloween.
It's too early for me to start getting excited about Christmas films because you best know I am. And I'm quietly researching ready for that December episode. But yeah, it is similar. It's not quite...
Do you want it to be kitsch?
Obviously, I love kitsch.
Okay.
So for example, at the weekend... we watched quite a lot of spooky, not scary films.
And this is very not you, but very your boyfriend.
Yeah, very Eddie genre. Although I think I did match his energy.
Well done.
We watched Practical Magic.
Oh.
What a film.
Great film.
It's from the 90s. We've got Sandra Bullock. We've got Nicole Kidman. We've got very cheesy witch film. We've got
great
plot
fashion.
holes. We've got real plot holes.
Big plot holes, but great fashion.
great fashion, gaping plot holes. But that's kind of what makes it. They are a coven of witches, like 3 generations. And the great-grandmother puts a curse on the family for any woman who falls in love with a man, he shall die.
That's it.
A death beetle comes.
So
that's our plot.
I have to admit, so even though I'm not a huge fan of like the scary film, I think they're so good at pushing cinema into like new spaces and new territories. Like Blair Witch Project was like amazing at the time.
That's very true.
And more recently we've had Get Out. Which is a Jordan Peele film.
Jordan Peele is a real pioneer of amazing. I have watched Jordan Peele films. That's about as scary as I can go.
I love it. So one of the films that was listed on this list, was published on the National, was Nope. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Did you like it?
Yes.
See, you like scary films.
But is it not a little bit more psychological? I think I can do psychological. I can't do... Like, I've just got no interest in jump scares.
I feel you.
And gore, which is ironic because obviously I love true crime. I don't know. I'm complex. What can I say?
You can't.
There's a few films that obviously around about this time every year we get a new flock of Halloween films that are actually scary, not just spooky. Sometimes both. But one that has come out this year, which I already can tell you I will not be watching, but I have read quite a lot about, is called The Substance. Have you heard about this?
No, I haven't. Tell me.
It stars Demi Moore, and it is about, it's probably a bit, bit raw and a bit real. And it's about kind of like all of the systems in place to kind of keep us young and like the extreme lengths that people will go to preserve youth, and the kind of tweakments that people can have. But it's a film about ageism, and it just becomes, apparently it's like people have like walked out of screenings and like blacked out with levels of fear from this film.
They always say that. I just think that like when I used to do like the whole like media junket thing, there would always be like, they'd always say whenever it's Halloween, it was like, oh, and like people walked out the cinema, it was so scary.
This was so scary. People were throwing up. I guess that is perfect marketing for a scary film.
Yeah.
So I've just eaten right out their hands here with The Substance. But
I still want to go and see it though.
It's backfired because I will not watch it because I don't want to have to walk out of any cinemas, and I also don't want to pass out with fear. Did I talk about Blink Twice recently?
You have spoken about it, but it's still on my list. I still haven't gone to see it. It's
kind of in a similar genre to Jordan Peele's films, just to backtrack a bit. It's psychological. That's about as scary as I like to go. It's not scary. It's a thinker. Similar to Get Out.
Did you not find Get Out scary at all?
Get Out's okay. I watched Get Out on a plane. That's a strange place for me to have chosen to watch that, I think. I don't know why I did that, but I did. And I couldn't get out because I was on a plane. And it was scary. But I guess the themes it was referencing in real life are a lot scarier. So you've always got that to lean on.
True. I think the scariest film I ever watched was on a plane too. I don't know what it is about this. I'm on a plane, I'm just like, oh yeah, let me just watch something that just grips you, because then it makes the flight go faster. And horror like often is quite gripping. But I watched Mother with Jennifer Lawrence. Have you seen that?
Of course not.
Don't.
Very scary, dark black and blue artwork for that film. I will not go near it.
Very, very scary film. On the tail end of a trip back from Australia. Definitely won't recommend. But there's more on the list, guys.
When I was a teenager, so many moons ago, we went through that phase of, it's Friday night, let's all go watch a film at so-and-so's house. And it was often a scary film. Like, it was, I guess we were trying to like push boundaries, like getting 18s and things, and like when we were younger. And I think that's basically where my scary film career began and ended.
I think when you're a teenager, you're kind of pushing boundaries anyway. That's part of being a teenager. And at that time in my life, I didn't find life that scary, right? Because I was living in a nice house with my parents who fed me and clothed me. It was only until I got into the big real world that scary films had a real impact on on me psychologically, because
that's fair. Some of the films that we watched when I was younger include on the list that we have here, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre,
classic,
The Exorcist, also a classic. I remember, this is very nichely British, but when I was probably about 17, we went to Thorpe Park for Fright Night. Have you ever done it?
No, but yeah.
It's basically like Disney style. They set up a massive part of a theme park and turn it scary. Yeah. And there's a lot of it that's spooky and accessible and cute and fun. But then there is the actually scary part. And this was around about the time that all the Saw films came out. I've actually watched some of them, which I have not watched since I was probably about 16, 17. It was around about that time. And there was like a Saw themed one. Oh my gosh. That was damaging. At the end, somebody chased us out with a chainsaw. And
is it an actual
I don't know, probably not. The Thorpe Park probably didn't have the insurance to actually maybe kill us. So probably not, but it was scary.
That kind of stuff is really scary.
Do you like watching scary series? Because we've got a couple here, like The Haunting of Hill House and Midnight Mass.
I have watched scary series in the past.
You watched a series with Eddie.
Yeah, I did. I can't remember what that was called.
It was an Edgar Allan Poe adaptation, I swear.
It was really good though. As I said, like sometimes like it's not my go-to genre, but there's something, I feel like I'm kind of coming into my second era of horror films. There's something about living in safe, cuddly UAE has made me turn towards the thrilling, gripping side of horror as a kind of like another like little outlet, similar to when I was a teenager.
I think people will have like quite similar responses to scary films as like I do with true crime. The kind of, it's not like, obviously true crime is harrowing when you're really reading about these people that have died and this awful these awful stories. But people kind of have them as like their emotional support films, because like watching them is like as bad as it can be. I think there was like a girl that we used to work at the National called Katie, that she felt like that about them. She loved scary films. But I just,
No, I can't watch them like alone. I don't mind watching them in the morning.
Lights on. Natural light.
And then I'm like, oh yeah, this is funny. This is really funny. I was trying to think, there was another series more recently that I watched. Like I do find those ones that kind of go into true crime or like detective-esque. So Luther was one of those kind of like, you know, as a horror crime series. I find those quite
like
terrifying.
Monster, the Dharma and the Menendez brothers. Like Dharma, I did think was, the Jeffrey Dahmer's story is terrifying. Absolutely horrifying.
Don't tell me it.
Oh,
I don't know it. No.
Oh, that's you're happier for not knowing. Then on the list we've also got like the kind of more my genre, spooky. How many times have I said spooky in this episode? Do a spooky count. The kind of more kid-friendly and Farah-friendly, like Beetlejuice.
It's come back.
Have you watched Beetlejuice?
I have watched Beetlejuice 1988 version.
Not the 2024 one that came out.
But I will like to watch that one.
I watched it in the cinema. Meh.
Oh.
Rewatch Beetlejuice, the original, would be my top tip.
And I like the other one we have on our list, which is The Witches by Roald Dahl. Adaptation. Terrifying book as a child.
The 1990 version.
Terrifying.
Very up my street though.
Oh, really?
I obviously was scared by it, but I loved it.
My favourite film growing up was Labyrinth, which a lot of people found really scary. I loved Labyrinth.
Pan's Labyrinth.
No, not Pan's Labyrinth, which is also a very good film.
And
quite scary.
Yeah. Also the weekend we watched Hocus Pocus.
I was going to say Hocus
2.
Pocus. Oh, they're such good films.
What a double bill.
I wonder do you think that my children could watch that yet? Maybe not.
One is still a little bit like...
Is it a bit? Really? Okay.
Like the main theme is that they eat children.
Oh, yes, I know. Dahlia, if you're listening, don't worry. Mama's not going to play that film.
So we won't watch that yet. Watch that when you're out of the realm of worrying.
Maybe when you get to
Bette
double
Midler.
digits, Dee. I know we were all waiting for you to get to double digits.
That can be a treat.
It can be a treat. You can watch a scary film when you get to double digits.
Hocus pocus. But yeah, that's the Halloween visual content. Do you celebrate Halloween? We have a few weeks left to talk about Halloween.
My children have decorated the door. I'm off to London to go and see my niece, who is a Halloween baby.
Oh, cute.
So she has a Halloween themed party every year.
Ah.
Lovely.
And next week we'll have a lot more to talk about for Halloween, I am sure, because Halloween is next Thursday, I think.
Yes.
So now we are going to chat about some more film content, but more locally, the Sidr Environmental Film Festival, which is taking place this week.
And what I really love about this is like how it's being co-organized with the Environment Agency in Abu Dhabi and with the support of the Natural History Museum in Abu Dhabi. I think this is a really clever way, or like the meaning behind this film festival, I think is a really nice way to try and draw attention to the environment.
Yes, 100%. So the films being featured all pay tribute to all forms of life that connects communities, with the aim for audience to appreciate the infinite world of creatures that we live in, which is really nice.
Yeah, and they've gone through the back catalogue for this film festival. So if you are around the Arts Centre in NYUAD between 25th of October and the 27th, I really recommend you have a look at some of the international classics and regional local films that they're all being brought in for this little film festival, which kind of celebrates our, not just about creatures, but like on a basic level, like how we relate to animals and the environment.
And one of our relationship with living beings.
Yeah. And one of my all-time favorite films is on the list.
Yeah. So I have seen this. I didn't, so talk about it.
Okay. So it's a film that was shown to me at school as a child. So it was, I think my teacher, Rooney, Mr. Melrose, he really loved this film, Kes, which it was made in 1969. And it's about this young working class British boy who comes across a kestrel falcon, very appropriate to celebrate a falcon as we live in the UAE. But he comes across this bird, and his relationship, or his kind of him looking after this bird, kind of helps him also deal with the struggles of like his home life, his school life, and kind of helps him find I don't know, like kind of like a lease of life. It's a very slow paced 1960s British film, but really, really lovely. So if you've never seen it, Kes was made in 1969 by the classic British filmmaker Ken Loach.
Yeah, it's I think you sum up perfectly. It's like it's not a fast-paced action, go. It is really a gentle-paced film that is kind of like loaded with meaning and very, very impactful, and kind of about exactly that kind of connection to living beings. And so on the curated list of films that they've got coming to the festival, there's a good number of international films. Some, apart from Kes, I haven't seen many of them, but if any of them ring a bell for you, there's Against the Tide, a 2023 film, which is the opening feature of the festival. It's a documentary that centers on two collie fishermen in Mumbai whose friendship is threatened by the ecosystem that they depend on when it is ruined. So that is one of the films on the list. And then also Red Turtle, which is an Oscar-nominated film that tells the story of a man stranded on a desert island who meets a red turtle. That's kind of giving Castaway.
It is giving Castaway. I like these two films as well because they kind of centered around sea life. And I think people who live work around the sea are often at the kind of forefront of seeing those like really big changes. Recently at the National, we did a story on fishermen in the Nile who have been clearing plastic as another way of making some income, but also as a way of like preserving their environment for future generations of fishermen. And I do feel like often they're kind of like, they're at this forefront of seeing the environmental impact that it has on our seas and our oceans. So it's really nice that the film festival is going to start with some films which which focus on that topic.
For sure. And then there's also some of the regional films that are being shown, which is really nice to see. There's 2 short films developed by the UAE platform Climate Tribe. One is Co-Creating with Nature, which explores designer Rima Al-Meri's practice of repurposing discarded fish scales as lamps, which sounds really interesting.
Love that.
And then also The Beekeeper's Journey, which we have written about quite a lot in our team, which follows an ecologist as she seeks to raise awareness about the precious ecosystem of bees, which is so important the world over. There's like the fact that if bees go extinct, the food chain ends and we all go extinct. So there's very like kind of like life, and that kind of interconnectivity is so important.
Very important. But it's really good that we talk about it more, because I don't remember as a child hearing much about how important bees were. No. I feel like my children are really clued up on that. Yeah,
it's spoken about quite a lot, isn't it? And like there are really random celebrities that advocate for bees. Like I'm so sure that one of the Gallaghers is like a real bee advocate.
The bees.
Yeah. Liam Gallagher and bees.
Parkers and bees.
Have you tried Hatter Honey?
I have not. No. But we did do a short, I have worked on a short documentary piece for it at the National.
You really are backing a lot of our work today. This is great.
I really am. I know. Well, it is a fountain of a lot of my knowledge.
It is. It's where, if I've not read it here. Hatter Honey is wonderful. Definitely worth trying if you are ever in Hatter, which is a little enclave of Dubai in the north of the UAE. The Hatter Honey, very, very delicious. Local honey is obviously very good for allergies and that kind of thing. And I was at a dinner recently at Row on 45, which is a 2 Michelin star restaurant. And they use Hatter Honey in one of their courses. And it's also used in an alcohol-free wine that they serve with it.
Lovely.
It's kind of more of a mead, but it's alcohol-free. And it's, delicious. But that kind of, those beautiful, like, ecological connectivity stories.
We're all connected. Well, we're all connected.
Yeah, very much so.
This is coming through on this film festival too. Are there other films as well that we need to catch? I'm looking at my list.
There's regional features in collaboration with Lebanon's Reef Festival. So 2 of the films are Tree of Hell, which was released in 2024, so this year. Director Ray Zeno discovers an invasive tree species growing in front of his house that threatens the diversity of Lebanon's forests. And he learns more about the tree as his country comes under attack from Israel. So it's kind of like the metaphor of the invasive tree in the very real landscape of international news at the moment.
And then we have the other, which is Shift, which is a story from Shadi Saad, a former hunter who's become a protector of wildlife in the Lebanese mountains.
Oh, that sounds nice. That's also a film from this year.
Both filmed this year. It's really good to see cinema from this region explore this topic as well. But I do think it's something that is really inherent in the Middle East, is how much they care for their environment and for the animals there.
Yeah, and the kind of like ecological programs that are put in place, and kind of making sure that we have those connections to like history and ecology, which is so important.
Yeah, lovely. So now on to another topic. I suppose that when we were doing our editorial meeting, we were just like, God, we have to talk. I know he passed away, Liam Payne, who is one of the members of One Direction, which is probably in a generation the biggest boy group ever existed for that
definitely
generation.
The biggest boy group coming out of the UK in the last 20 years.
And I think, they rose up at the same time as social media. So they became kind of like at the forefront of a lot of how fame was being consumed at the time.
Yeah, I think so. For a kind of like all-round roundup of, Liam Payne was a member of One Direction and a contestant on British talent show The X Factor. So kind of exactly, he auditioned when he was 14.
He was 14. He was a baby.
Yeah, which is incredible. So he was in the band, I think they started in 2010, but I might be off with that number. But 2020, I feel like I read that was their 10-year anniversary. But so has spent more than half of his life in the public eye. He auditioned age 14, and
he grew up in the public eye, really. Like, I don't think you could say someone who's at 14, like you didn't, I wouldn't have even thought of a decision like that as being so monumental at that age.
No, it's impossible to have any appreciation for the gravity of what you're doing and the kind of real key to this kind of generation of artists is there's the initial part of his career on the X Factor, which is documented from A to Z. So we've got a year of his life just on the X Factor, because then they kind of do the tour after, and there's like this ongoing just TV documentation. And then One Direction have always had very passionate, shall we say, fans. Like the fan base is enormous for One Direction. And they were pretty similar to kind of like the Taylor Swift school of artists, where they were very open with their fans on social media. And there was an awful lot there was enormous dialogue with fans towards the beginning of their career.
I think that was definitely kind of the trend at the time for a lot of these bands or people. Like even Lady Gaga would refer to her fans as her monsters. There was that trend at the time that social media has come around, and so now you have to kind of lay your life bare. I think that trend is reversing.
100%.
And we're definitely going back to a time where celebrities are becoming more and more guarded. But they were definitely, One Direction definitely grew up during that trend.
And we can now, we can see how different members of the band have kind of introduced boundaries slightly differently, because I think Harry Styles is probably the most currently, I mean, although Niall Horan is also still touring big shows. Well, Zayn has just cancelled his tour in light of Liam's death. And they kind of have put in a lot more boundaries in terms of like what they're sharing on social media. But Liam still seemed to have a pretty open dialogue with his fans on Snapchat and Instagram. And he was, still very engaged with his fan base.
Up until the day he died. So he died at the age of 31 after falling from his hotel room in Argentina, where he was there to see his his ex-bandmate Niall perform in Buenos Aires. So obviously I think that the news hit fans really hard. There were already a lot of One Direction fans were in the city to see Niall's performance. And then when news hit of Liam's death, we saw, I remember waking up and coming in and just seeing all of the fans were on the streets in Buenos Aires, kind of mourning his death. So it shocked a lot of people. He's so young, 31.
Yeah, far, far, far too young. I think something that's also been really shocking to kind of see in the last the last week or so since his death is the way it's been covered, and the kind of responsibility of outlets in covering celebrity death, and the fact that a lot of the time it is kind of it's treated as a news story or something quite salacious, and it's forgotten that there is a person, a family, a very real grieving process in this, without being high and mighty or pious. We can look to American outlet TMZ that are the biggest entertainment outlet in the world, or among the biggest entertainment outlets in the world. And they often get these very key exclusive pieces of news and exclusive footage. And they were sent photographs of his body.
Which is not acceptable.
Made the decision to publish them.
It's not acceptable.
And then they were taken down and then republished as just parts of his body.
Did I just say it's not acceptable?
You've made it quite clear.
I think there's such a responsibility.
Yeah.
We as journalists have a responsibility to filter some of this stuff from the general public
100%.
and to protect people, because I do think that we do get privy to a lot of information or scenes footage that does not need to be made public.
And it turns a tragic, I mean, there's no doubt and no denying that this is a completely tragic death. And it turns it into something salacious. It turns it into something very shareable. And this like just the kind of grotesque rubbernecking at this tragedy and the kind of human impulse to kind of want to see, want to look. And in the kind of, we were writing about it, we were reporting on it the morning that the news broke that he had died.
Yeah.
And trying to go, like social media is obviously not a completely reliable source in that anyone can write anything. It's not a reliable source. And there were videos that were claiming to be footage of his fall that were being shared everywhere.
Mad.
Outlets sharing them.
Okay.
And all it was, yeah, and the kind of, it's completely the responsibility and the way that news can be shared and the extreme misinformation that can be shared is, it's kind of, you can forget about it and then you kind of be really confronted with, if you take to Twitter and you just decide to write 140 characters of absolute nonsense, then it can go viral.
It can go viral. And with his death, obviously there are circumstances and that suggest as well that the star may have been struggling with some substance abuse, which has become, more people are talking about. But I think it all comes back to, again, and I think when you and I were speaking about it, was that, is there really enough protection?
No.
Okay, for these stars? Like, you come out of a huge boy band. Was anybody thinking about him? Was anyone looking after him?
Yeah, so it kind of is this fame factory with people that are, okay, so yeah, you've got five young boys. I'm going to say boys because they were teenagers that then auditioned to be on an internet. Obviously, we now have a slightly different relationship with these talent shows, but this time, 15 years ago, they were so popular.
Yeah.
And then One Direction, each of them auditioned as soloists. Simon Cowell et al. Decided that they'd be more powerful as a group of five, kind of saw the boy band potential. And then they became enormous, like you said, the biggest boy band that's come out in this generation. And there is, I mean, we've spoken about this where with celebrity and adult celebrities, I don't think there's ever the kind of, it's never acceptable, the kind of like levels of obsession and the kind of the amount that people kind of take for granted that they should know about these people. But at least when people are adults and they've made this decision and they are driving a career themselves, there is an element of kind of like individual accountability there. But when you've got teenagers, children, child stars, the amount of it can be so open to exploitation and the kind of extreme highs and lows for a child star. And then, so we say, okay, they stop being famous, they can step back from the camera, but then they've spent 10 of their formative years kind of getting all of their kind of like validation from being famous, from the factory of fame. And then it's like, okay, so what now? We just don't care about you. Off you go. And I'm not saying that's what's happened to Liam or what happened to Liam, but it's like there has to be like this kind of like more accountability for the welfare of artists, 100%.
Yeah, I think it's something that, unfortunately, well, hopefully, who knows, it might change. So there's been a new petition that has been signed by more than 25,000 people after it was circulating under the hashtag Liam's Law.
And that might even be more now.
There's probably more, demanding the entertainment industry be held more accountable for the welfare of its artists. And again, I think maybe we will see, I think as mental health as well has become a bit more of the forefront, I think young fans are a bit more clued up on it.
So we've, in this week, we've seen, I mean, it's still, I don't know how I feel about the idea that there's fans still kind of crowding outside of the hotel that he died in. But his family members have arrived at the hotel and they've kind of protected the family members from being photographed because they're grieving. So fans are trying to be mindful in that way. But like we see it as a kind of endless cycle of child stars who then go on to have incredibly tragic adulthoods. Like someone who's like very front of mind is Britney Spears. She was under a conservatorship for nearly like decades and is now kind of out on her own. But people are worried about her kind of public displays on social media, and she's an adult who is making her own decisions of what she's posting now.
Yeah,
but
people are worried about people like Justin Bieber too.
100%. I mean,
lots of. I think we're getting a bit more. Maybe it was kind of putting children into this more adult world. Isn't always the best.
I mean, there's a whole other subject, and it's shaky territory, but the more we're going to start hearing about allegations regarding Diddy and his kind of pyramid that he had surrounding him of horrifying or alleged parties that were taking place, and the fact that there were going to be people like Justin Bieber, that were a part of that world and kind of his experiences there. The only other thing I was going to say about Liam is he spoke quite frankly about his addiction issues and his.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
So in 2021, he spoke about the way his relationship with alcohol and the fact that when they spent like their whole life on tour and in hotels, and then in order it was kind of a part of the protection of the band that they were kind of locked away in their hotel room. And this is like me paraphrasing a quote from him, but it's very much what he was saying. So kind of what do you do when you are alone in a hotel room? There's one thing in there, and that's a mini bar. And he said that for years it was just a party for one in these hotel rooms. And then hotel rooms kind of became this very stressful, scary place because it was like party for one. And so there is like something so tragic that after a few years after he had said that that's like a space that he really struggles in, and being there by himself, that is where he ultimately died. And that is so tragic.
That is really sad. Recommendations of the week.
I'm very excited about your recommendation.
You've seen it?
I haven't seen it. I've listened to the podcast.
Okay, so last night I finally got around to watching the documentary. It's kind of a documentary film, hour and 22. Sweet Bobby.
Oh, is it only a film? It's not a series?
No, it's not a series, which I really like.
Yeah.
Please make more films and less dragged out series.
I always
Netflix.
assume that when I see these true crime features pop up on Netflix, they're going to be like an 8 to 12 episoder, and I just haven't got the time.
No one has.
Okay, well, I have got 1 hour and 22 minutes to dedicate to Sweet Bobby.
Sweet Bobby was a podcast, very, very successful podcast by the production house Slow Tortoise.
Yes.
I was very keen on it at one point. I really wanted to buy rights to this story when it came out as a podcast. It was one part of the bidding process for it, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I thought it was just a great story. Turns out Netflix had, and lots of other people had the idea too.
Netflix able to outbid you.
How dare they?
Do you want to give us a quick top line of Sweet Bobby?
So a quick top line. It's a very twisty-turny catfish love story centered around a very endearing radio host whose name is Kirat, from the Punjabi British community. Really fascinating tale. I really recommend everyone watch it. I much preferred the podcast, actually.
Interesting.
Right? But I'm recommending it because my husband never heard the podcast, never listened, had no idea what the story was. He gasped and couldn't believe the story that unfolded.
We aren't going to do spoilers.
We're not going to do any spoilers.
So one thing I will say about for a lot of true crime series and podcasts, obviously because it's real life, we don't always get resolution at the end. We don't always find out who did it. We don't always see people pay for what they did. In Sweet Bobby, you find out. You do find out. And you will gasp. I feel a bit bad for Eddie because he does know how it ends because he went through the journey with me listening to the podcast and he told me he was never going to listen to it.
And he did?
No. So now, but he wouldn't be able to watch Sweet Bobby with fresh eyes.
Yeah, I still think it's still worth a watch. Getting access like that as a documentary maker, fantastic. So well done to the team behind that one.
I'm definitely going to, I'll watch that for sure.
What's your recommendation, Farah?
Bit different this week. My recommendation is Global Village. It's open again.
Woo!
For the uninitiated, which I don't believe anyone is at this stage.
Oh no, our producer, Van, she had no idea what it was.
What it was?
Yeah, her over there.
Don't. Oh, you're pointing. You're pointing.
I'm pointing fingers. But I did tell her that, she's just
new to the UAE.
Yes, exactly. Which I was the same last year. Do you remember?
So Global Village is back for its 29th season. My goodness, I've just realized the next year's is 30th. That's going to be very, very, very big for my team. And it is a very fun, very colorful, very loud entertainment, world-themed entertainment park here in Dubai. There are shopping pavilions. The food there is chef's kiss. You get like pop-ups. There are some pop-ups that come from different places around the world. So there's like some places that are viral in London that have just come for the season.
Love that.
And there's like different countries have their little pavilions.
I'm very excited because Jordan has a pavilion. Yeah. For the first time.
This is the first year for Jordan?
Yeah.
There you go. It's also very affordable. So
which we all like to hear.
Yeah. I can't remember the exact price, but tickets are in the kind of like 30 dirham remit. So that you can kind of take the whole family and it is not going to be a bank breaker. Just don't expect it to be quiet. It will be busy. There will be lots of people there.
Can't wait.
There will be atmosphere.
It's on my winter tick list.
Yeah, for sure. There are always lots of shows. There'll be parades. Like there's a bit of like Disney energy, but like high energy Disney energy. So,
but it's also multicultural.
And it is just a celebration of the world, which is so lovely. And there's like mini versions of like the Taj Mahal.
Love that.
Go find that. Go find the mini Eiffel Tower. I don't know if that's still there. I assume it is. But there's also big Ferris wheels and that kind of thing. Like it's a very family fun day out. So fun.
Nice.
I'll be going in a few weeks.
I love that. That's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you like this episode, then please subscribe to hear more.
And don't forget to tell your friends and family, and you can find more arts and culture stories over on thenationalnews.com.
Bye.